And we're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 229 of Fans of Power. I am Joe Amato, and I'm here with my partners in crime, Tyler T-Rex Baker and Nasty Nate, Nathan Kennedy, and our special guest. He's recurring all the time, at least once a month, might be twice a month, I don't know, but James Eatock. So, how's it going, James?
Yeah, not too bad, man. When you said episode 229, I was like, wow, you got more episodes than He-Man and She-Ra combined now. So well done, man.
Hey. There you go.
I love that, but also feel like we should have got more episodes then. We should not have eclipsed both of those.
No, I mean 223 wasn't a bad run. You know, it's more than your average show gets these days.
True.
But, yeah. Look at that, starting off with a fact. You know it's going to be good, right?
Well, you can add in New Adventures or something, then we got to surpass that, and then you can add in MYP, then we'll have to surpass that, and there you go.
Sure, there's something else, but yeah, it's you got there's a lot of episodes to add in. Then you have the specials and all that business, and yeah. Are we still live, Nate? Have we been taken off the air yet?
If you guys are wondering why I'm still quiet and now Joe's camera's being all wonky on me, but yeah, if I'm being quiet, it's because I'm intently watching everything else.
You're making sure everything's working.
Yes. Trust me, I'm like honestly legit. I kid you not. My hands are kind of shaking a little bit just because I'm just like, please, just nothing happen, please.
I should do something just like I'll pause purposely, like yeah, and then that.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
You'll be like, what happened?
That's actually.
Now that'll probably happen. You probably jinxed yourself.
We should have actually had that as a bit where like James would have said something and then we all just froze in place and then everyone thinks it's something.
Just piss off everybody in the chat. That'd be great.
Oh god. But yeah, we have a lot of different topics, and before we get into them, I'll quickly acknowledge the chat room. If you miss anybody, we'll get you towards the end of the show. Got Bram Man, Chandra Van Vliet, Daniel Carhoonan, Descendants of Grayskull, Dingalorian, Febmon, Grimbot, Papa Hud 69, Rajiv Patel, and Zen Brown. That's an inside joke. I'm starting to call him Brown instead of Brown because apparently remember that Squinch has a speech impediment that he can't say ours now.
You don't need to continue to bring up that piece of shit comic.
Yeah, but just for context for Brown, it's Brown now. But yeah, so thanks for joining us.
Keep it to yourself. Don't let that bleed over onto the podcast here.
Not that again. Yeah, but all right, now James, before we get going, I figured you can at least start off with you want to talk a little bit about the Savage era until we get into the 85 thing, because this 85 project that you got going, we're really intrigued about it. But if you want to start with talking Savage.
One thing, can I just get a glass of water? I completely forgot to.
No, you can't. You can't get no water. No, that's it.
I'll keep you entertained with this. You can just look at this dude.
Not this again. We can have the back on the floor.
He's back.
He's returned. Get your gifts ready, or whatever they call that thing.
I'll tell you anyway. Let me just get a water. I'll be back in about, I don't know, 10 seconds.
It took like less than 5 minutes, and when we already got that going on. And you know what? Speaking of being forgetful, I totally forgot to put the link down below for Horde Prime Takes a Holiday, so you guys go ahead and search for that and get that loaded up because we're going to do a commentary for that later on as well. I don't even know how many people actually click on that in the description and then do that.
It would be nice if you people let Nathan's know, for his own benefit. We encourage more because I want to thank everybody who comments regularly about each episode, whatever it's about. But give Nathan more feedback too on stuff like that. If you guys use the links, let him know. Let him know that his efforts are not a fart in the wind or something like that.
That doesn't look like water, James.
Oh, it's just like juice of some sort.
So there you go, juice.
It's nothing fancy. No, don't worry. Yeah, here we are. Sorry about that. I usually I'm quite prepared, but with the like my laptop camera, I've said it before. It's whenever I'm doing a Zoom chat, it's obvious who's got the crappy laptop and the even more lame camera in its eye. This laptop's only 4 years old. I guess that's past its lifetime warranty with laptops. But yeah, the camera's just atrocious. It's all blurry. Although when I joined Skype, it said something about. When I first went on, it said something about blurring the background. I was like, oh, that's fancy. So all the background was blurred. And I was like, high def. But yeah, it's okay, that's quite interesting.
Your camera looks fine though. I mean, everything looks okay. I don't see a problem with it.
Besides, we put up with years of Joe's camera looking absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
So
If anybody, you used to like VHS quality, it's like anything past that, it's like, damn, this is high def. So you look okay, definitely.
I was going to say, what was that old format? Was it Real Video? That was what Joe's camera was reminding me. Was it Real Video?
Oh yeah, the Real Player back in the day. Yeah, that thing sucked.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
I remember when you'd always get news reports from around the world on like the BBC or something. It'd be like, and we're joining our people in Iraq on the Real Player. And it's like, hello, how are you? It's like, what's going on? Is there like a rave? Or what are we missing here? You know, it was so weird that technology was just accepted back then. But I guess, you know, we're coming in good and strong though. We haven't been cancelled yet. We're still good.
We're still good so far.
All good.
Whew. So yeah, where do we go? Where do you want me to start with?
I want you to start if there's anything you want to say about the Savage era, but you can at least get going to however you want, whatever context you want to do it. You can start talking about that.
So serious that the socks have just come off.
Okay, there we go.
He's getting loose and relaxed now, people.
Yeah. So no. So yeah, I was it last weekend. I did a press release. Sounds so official. Obviously, this is the least official thing ever for the Masters of the Universe 85 project. And I thought, oh, this is, you know, not to be arrogant, but whenever I've announced something in the, you know, something many years I've been on the internet, whether it be via websites or heman.org or these days of social media, always been like widely received positively. And likewise, Masters of the Universe 85 was. But there seemed to be two factions that were less than pleased with my press statement and really kind of went at it. And it was like, it's that classic thing of you'll have on average like 100 people say something nice, and those two people that say something horrible, they just stay with you, and you're just like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. And it's not like it was paining me, but it's just the problem I had with the negative feedback to the press release was it wasn't grounded in any form of reality. It was either interpreting what I'd written as completely wrong, or just going after me for things I'd said in passing. So I thought, okay, well we'll start with the I should have said. So the fans that seemed to go after me were a few Savage fans, and I say a few, maybe like 5 or 6, and a few hardcore fans of the DreamWorks She-Ra show. Now obviously both. Yeah, I know. So obviously both.
I mean, like, you shouldn't even acknowledge these assholes, but both these little factions.
You almost want to. You kind of want to explain. If someone's calling you out for something, you need to almost say, "Hang on a sec, this isn't based in fact." So I the Savage fans were saying, well, like I say, I'm not putting them all in, but there was a group just saying, "Oh, he hates the Savage era, this, that," like even calling out things I'd said in the past. It's like, yeah, look, let's be honest here. I am a Filmation fan. They are Savage fans. Those are New Adventures fans. Okay, they're few and far between. Those are 2002 fans. Those are DreamWorks fans. We all have our favourites. The beauty of the He-Man and She-Ra franchise is that you can pick and choose and do this and that. So, yes, the first 4 mini-comics, not my favourite. I laugh at certain things in them. Guess what? I laugh at certain things in the Filmation cartoon. That I laugh at the fact that He-Man's like, I'm going to chuck this boulder, and then 2 episodes later, I'm just going to move the moon. You know, that to me that's my ability to see the absurdity and the greatness in the Filmation cartoon. The same with the mini comics. I can look at He-Man punching a house and going, I made a house, and then I see other scenes with Skeletor. I'm like, oh, Skeletor's so badass there. Or as I've said before, the 7 DC produced mini comics. They're my favourites. I've said that numerous times. Like, don't get me wrong, a couple of the Bruce Timm things are great, more so because of the artwork and the Larry Houston stuff. But those 7 DC comics, there was a time when that was my He-Man. You know, because that's all there was. I remember getting the Power of Point Dread with a Beastman figure and thinking, this is great. And then the cartoon comes, and guess what? I like the cartoon. But there was one comment by one guy, I forget his name, and he said something like, oh, I'm not going to read something by one of, this was the funny part, by one of Val and Scott's, as in Scott Knightlick's, little buddies. I was like, oh, wow, I'm a little buddy of Scott Knightlick. That's funny, because we've only conversed a few times, but I'll take it. I'm buddies with the brand manager. But the other thing he said was, I'm not going to like basically read the works of someone who believes it was a fantastic piece of writing. Someone should hire him to write something. And the line was, I'm not going to read something by someone, as in me, who believes that the Filmation cartoon was written on God's parchment paper. And it's like, are you crazy? Like, bless you for thinking that I'm like, don't get me wrong, I've said it before, I'm a massive fan of the Filmation cartoon. Of course I am. Also, I've made a lot of money off being a fan of the Filmation cartoon because I've been an expert and I love the show. Like, other people, other fans of other brands and stuff. If you make it your life, it becomes the one thing you focus on. But like I said, I'm not dense enough that I think that Filmation cartoon never failed. Of course it failed. There's a reason we have the 10 best episodes. There's a reason why The Problem with Power and Teela's Quest are up here, and Trouble's Middle Name and The Greatest Show on Eternity are like way down here. No disrespect, Ralby Goran. He knows I love him. But yeah, it's that whole thing. It's like, as that Savage fan who's saying you think it's written on God's parchment paper, do you think the mini comics were written on God's parchment paper? Because you can't find any fault with them. This is the thing. If you're unable to find fault with something, you've got a screw loose somewhere. You have to be able to go, like I've said before, the Savage mini comics, those first 4 anyway, artwork, fantastic. It's Alcala. Guess who owns Alcala original artwork? I nearly swore. No swearing. It says it on a bit of paper. Yeah, I love Alcala's artwork. Of course I do. But I'm not. But at the same time, I'm not blind enough that I go, those first 4 are amazing, because they're great bits and they're silly bits. There's wonderful bits, there's awful bits. That's how stories are. Don Gluck, the writer of those first 4 mini comics, has pretty much disowned them as something he did, blah, blah, blah. There you go, paycheck. And that's fine. Everybody needs a job. And we've all done jobs in the past where it's like, I did it for the money. We've all been there on those crazy Friday nights. But we've all danced in clubs with our top off, let's face it. But it's it's just that absurdity of you must be able to see the good and the bad in everything. And don't get me wrong, you can prefer, like I say, I prefer Filmation. I adore those 7 mini comics. I am not a fan of the first 4, and that doesn't mean I hate the first 4. I think the first 4 are dismissed. It's just they're not my favorite thing. Guess what? People don't like the Filmation. Some people like the 2002 cartoon. Some people like the DreamWorks cartoon, and they've been fans of the Filmation. That's fine as well. You can like different things. I'm not doing Mr. Playing it safe here, but I'm saying you can't attack me and say, oh, he hates the Savage stuff. It's like, no, it's just not my favorite. But if you think I think the Filmation cartoon is without fault, then you're a Muppet. Sorry, that's a disrespect to Muppets. But you know what I mean? That's almost an arrogant thing to say. And with a few of the DreamWorks fans, I was accused by one of the press statement. It said you can almost smell this is the thing, the thinly veiled misogyny, right? In my press release. Now, my press release, apparently it was some of the DreamWorks fans who obviously clear, and this is fine. You can jump into the DreamWorks show of having seen the rest, but you can't attack me without having know the context. So I wrote in the thing, no ponytail-based adventures in space, which is my little the New Adventures of He-Man. Side fact, love that cartoon. Always, I've been one of like 10 people that loves the New Adventures of He-Man cartoon. But the fact is, I said that. A few of the DreamWorks fans apparently thought that was me disrespecting the She-Ra cartoon, because at some point she turns up with a ponytail in like one of the later seasons. It's like, no, I'm not disrespecting the cartoon. Like, yes, I'll admit, I've only seen the first season. I haven't seen 2 to 5. I will eventually, because I'm a fan of all this stuff, so I will give everything a chance. Yes, the first season didn't make me go, oh my God, I must see the rest, because obviously it's been around for like 2 years now. I've still only seen 1 season. But just the whole thing of... attacking me without even... the funny thing about the misogynistic comment was a bunch of people came in to defend me, which was really sweet. And then that person removed their comment. But the thing I take issues with is there was no, oh, I'm really sorry, I implied that James was a misogynist. It was just like, no, delete my comment, like pretend I never said it. It's like, okay.
No, and that's a hard thing. You're right. It's hard for them to always apologize. Say, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have judged you before knowing what your post meant. They just sat there and jumped to a conclusion because it just wasn't one guy. Then there was somebody else that came along and tried to say how you phrased it was the real problem. About you were talking about a time before ponytails and uncles and this, and they said by you saying that, you're implying that those eras are bad. It's like, no. Like, picture me if I was to write a Friday the 13th movie and say I'm going to take you to a time of part 3 and 4 before Zombie Jason in 6 and 7. Am I saying 6 and 7 sucks? No, I'm just taking you to this time in particular. And that's what you're doing with your 85. You were just doing it for context, but they sat there and seen what you wrote, know nothing about you, tried to attack you, and then when all of us fans came to your defense, they went away and said nothing else.
That's the issue, I think, with just fandom on the internet, period. You see it between Star Wars fans, you see it with wrestling fans. Like, I see the thing, especially with wrestling, where NXT and AEW are going head-to-head on Wednesdays, and these people are like, AEW sucks, and they're like, oh yeah, well, WWE stuff sucks. I'm like, just, at the end of the day, like what you like, and don't be a dick, period.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, like, the wrestling YouTube channels I watch, like Wrestle Talk and Cultaholic and those things, and they always say, you know what, it's okay to like both, or like one or there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't, just because someone likes that doesn't mean they're the enemy. And don't get me wrong, I get difference of opinion, of course. That's the thing. And I'm not saying we should all live in peace and harmony and, star in a Coca-Cola advert. But with my press statement, all I was doing, and you can read it, and if you read it for more than 10 seconds without having a knee-jerk reaction, the whole point is no evil uncles. Guess what? Bruce Timm worked on that mini comic. I like the mini comic. I'm not a big fan of the Uncle Skeletor thing, but I love the mini comic, The Search for Keldor. New Adventures of He-Man, like I say, love that show. 2002 cartoon, I kind of worked on it with the writers. I was really good friends with the late, great Dean Stephan. For me to say no reboots, that's not attacking it. It's just saying, look, I'm going back to when the brand He-Man and She-Ra, the franchise in general, was worth $2 billion. It hasn't been worth that in years. It's always descended because that's the modern world we live in. You're never going to get those highs again because no real brand ever gets those highs. I mean, a few do, but it's few and far between. And all I was doing was saying 85. Originally, I called it Master Universe 83, and then I thought, I can't. And it was going to be like beyond that. But I thought by saying 83, it just kind of implies that I'm only doing that and anything before it. So therefore, I wouldn't have She-Ra. And I thought, I really want to make this about She-Ra. So I'll have 85 in the title, because then you can say this and the other. Some people pointed out, you mentioned King Hiss, but he didn't come out till 86. I'm like, okay, whatever. But I can still introduce it or like bring him in or, use him. 85 is just used as almost like a thing to say that you know what you're going to get if you say Master Universe 85. It's like, I'm not going to get Ponytail He-Man. I'm not going to get DreamWorks She-Ra. I'm not going to get the 2002 reboot with lots of spinny swords, as fun as that was. So I was just trying to make a thing of this is what to expect. And like I say, I'd say 99% of the people got it. And then you had a few who just like knee-jerk reacted because they felt their property was being attacked. And it's like, you don't own that property. You're a fan of it, but apparently you think it's without fault. Okay, that's cool. And yeah, it's crazy. I've said it before, and I'll happily say it to the day I die, is not a fan of the Savage era. Love I don't know if it falls within it, but love the 7 produced DC mini comics. Love those. I love everything. The Ladybird books, the bloody Star comics, the DC comics, the Golden books, the just everything. Like, you're allowed to take bits and pieces and like them. I like all those Ladybird books. Guess what? There's a few I don't like as much as the others. But A Trap for He-Man will always be like, oh my god, I love it, because it's one of the first books I remember getting. So I don't know, man. It's a tricky one. I can get how I maybe could have worded it better, as in maybe not saying no this, no that. But it was almost like a tongue-in-cheek thing of, hey, if you like that pure 85 goodness, that's what you're going to get with this. That's all it was. And
I don't think you worded it bad at all. I mean, what you did was perfectly fine. It's just like you said, it's people's way of like trying to interpret something in their head of how they think. But the way you put it, anybody that knows you and anybody that knows Masters knows exactly what that meant. So no, don't say you'd have to reword it. You did it absolutely perfectly fine. And speaking, well, now that you said it and you vented that out, let's hear about this Masters of the Universe 85. Because I think we're all freaking out just wanting to find out what is going on, how long this is going to last, and
Well,
What's happening?
it's so I spent, I'd say, the last couple of months. Obviously, lockdowns happened, and I remember, like, when lockdown kind of eased over here. Anyway, I was like, wandering out and stuff. You're not exactly going to pubs or bars or anything because they're all closed. So you tend to do. I've been doing a lot of walking lately. Plus, I need to because the old piles, the pounds piled on during lockdown. So I thought I need to sort that out. So I been doing a lot of walking. I kept thinking to myself, I want to try and I've done this quite a few times over the last few years. Is how do you capture something at a certain time, or like I wanted to celebrate. I just never see that with the brand. That's not me attacking the current franchise or current brand owners or anything like that. It's just I want to make people feel like they did when. And I couldn't figure out how to get this out there. I kept thinking, how do I do it? Do I go back to doing a blog? But blogs are kind of passé. Do I do like YouTube videos? And YouTube videos obviously are such a bugger, as we know, to kind of get up there and get views and stuff. So I thought, maybe I could do some sort of writing. Maybe I should do another book. And I thought I've already done a book. And then the more I thought about it, I just thought I just really want people to capture that moment when you open well, back in the day, being a kid, being in the 80s, going to a toy shop, getting a new figure like Jitsu, opening it, getting a mini comic. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the Clash of Arms, because we all had that.
Yeah.
It's don't get me wrong, fantastic mini comic. But oh my God, it was just like, not again. I mean, even though you could see it in the package. But that feeling of just when you got a new mini comic, especially with some of those later ones, where I remember like the first time I got the Mosquito action figure, and for my birthday, I came into central London, got the figure, opened it, got the mini comic. It was like, oh my God, enter Buzzsaw Horde. And I remember just being blown away by this mini comic. And I thought it'd be great to kind of capture that feeling again of just when you open a figure and there's a mini comic and there's a new story, and the story is A to B to C, or A to Z, or whatever you want to call it. It's linear. It's not, not that anybody's done this with He-Man, but it's not Pulp Fiction. It's not mixed up and stuff, or it's, I want a linear story, but I do want a plot and a subplot. Of course, you have to have that. And the more I thought about it, I thought, what could I do? And I just thought, what I've seen, and I'd say I've read most of them, and I know you guys don't agree with this, but I didn't. I really like. That's maybe a strong word. I didn't so much mind the He-Man Thundercats crossover. Don't kill me.
All right, James, you're off the show.
I can see.
Wait, the stream stopped. What happened to the stream? Stop, James. Jesus, you did it. No, go ahead.
Kill it.
No,
you're fine. Go ahead.
Tyler just goes, I'm ending this.
I'm just keeping my mouth shut. I'm not. I love James to death to come out and say anything negative about the man. So if he wants to, he's done so much for my passion for Filmation. If he wants to like that piece of shit, he is entitled to do it. So I give him a pass. Just keep going, dude. Yeah. I will not discuss it with you, but. You are.
As we see that Tyler turns from his shade of orange to match his tank top.
Yeah. Unless I'm forced to go get another thing of bleach and drink that here on the podcast to get through it. So. Oh
no. So So with those comics though, what the thing I liked about them, I mean, I was a big fan of Freddie Williams' artwork, and I amazingly, I had a table next to him at PowerCon last year, and. It wasn't until like the Sunday that I thought, I should speak to this guy. Super sweet guy. And I said, I really liked your work on that, because it just felt new for He-Man. I know not everybody was a fan of He-Man's carpet hair. I kind of didn't mind it, but I don't know, each to their own. We all got tastes and different things. But then what I've seen, I think I said to Joe recently, I've said to a few people, the problem I have with whenever people seem to get the license to do a comic book, and we've seen it since DC got the license, I think in 2011. And this is not an attack on DC. This is just my opinion of what I would do, what James Eatock would do. But they always seem to want to tell the biggest story and the be-all and end-all of it, whether it be that first one where He-Man doesn't have his memory and it ends up with this epic battle. Then you have the Eternity War, which ends up as an epic battle. The same could be said for like the He-Man Thundercats and the He-Man Injustice crossover, all big epic crossovers. And then with this latest one, Masters of the Multiverse, again, it's another big epic story. I love the basic premise of the story as it happens. But again, we need to tell the biggest story ever, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason for Master Universe 85 is I know I'm never going to get the license probably ever, but I thought, wouldn't it be great to go back to a time when a comic I'm a big fan of Marvel comics in the 1970s, 1980s, even like some of the 90s stuff.
The best era of Marvel, where it was one story beginning and end, and you moved on to the next issue. Episodic,
but also for the long-time readers, there would be like either a story arc that was going, but it wasn't so forceful that when you bought the comic, you thought, I'm going to have to go back to Spider-Man 77. I started reading Spider-Man from 308. It was McFarlane, Todd McFarlane, as he was kind of reaching the dizzying heights of Todd McFarlane. And I loved Spider-Man, but I jumped into that title. I hadn't read the previous 307 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, but jumped into it. It kind of caught you up to speed of where you were. And, classic things, they'll do a little flashback panel, or, that was that time when I fought La Tarantula. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, so I know where that is. And it will say C issue Spectacular Spider-Man #1 or something. You think, okay, so if I was to really want to read this story, I can go back and read them. I don't have to. And I think with this Master Universe thing, what I want to do is I just want to tell episodic stories. And yeah, you can, like, in the very first issue on page, I think it's going to be 9, I kind of bring something in. I'm not going to tie up in this issue, but I thought I'll do it there, and then I'll pick it up in the next issue or the third issue. And you wouldn't have to read 1 and 2 to read 3. Because, that was the other thing about my statement. I didn't really make clear what it was. And that was kind of purposeful at first. I thought, I'll just tease something. And then eventually, when people kept saying to me, what is it? I was pretty much like, I'm going to do a comic book. And again, free, unofficial. Not that worked with The Return of Faker, but free and unofficial. and that's what it is. That's all I want to do is put something on social media. Or, if I'm forced to, if they say you can't do it here, I'll do a website. And just like once a week, if fingers crossed, obviously these things take time, but I thought once a week, people just, whether it be on a Saturday or a Sunday at a certain time, a new page goes up and people get to read the next page in this comic book. And obviously it's a bugger to write that, because you kind of have to, every page has to end with a cliffhanger, but I'm not that ridiculous. It's not like, and then who should come out of the shadows and you have to turn the page. I'm not doing that kind of thing. It's not like the old blown, turn the page. It's not that kind of book. But you kind of have to it's the strength, I guess, with any kind of writing or any comic book, is you want people to keep reading more. So I'm going to start with issue 1. I've already got I did like the teaser of the title. Was it yesterday, I think, or the day before? It was called like An Alliance Reborn. And I woke up the other morning. I didn't wet the bed. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. and I was just like, I'm wide awake, and the sheets are dry. So what happened? So I started. Is
this an occurring problem or a reoccurring problem with you wetting the bed? Is that?
No, not at all, officer. So I woke up and I just thought, well, when you kind of wake up and you're just like, oh, I'm wide awake now. So at 6:30, I got a coffee and I sat down in front of my laptop at 7 a.m. and I just started writing. And it just came together really. And I thought, wow, I forgot how much I love writing. And also that's the beauty of these characters. And we're not talking, like I said, going back to the Savage stuff, I'm borrowing Skeletor here from like the DC comic books, the DC mini comics, the limited series, and I'd say the earlier Filmation Skeletor. I don't want Skeletor to call anyone a boob in this. And that's, I love Filmation.
Thank God.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I know it's going to sound crazy, and this is showing me at my most defensive. I almost don't want to give people ammunition. It's like, I don't want my Skeletor to go meow or any of that crap. The Skeletor I'm writing is, I'm hearing Oppenheimer's voice, but I'm hearing Oppenheimer, Dragon Invasion, Diamond Ray of Disappearance, Evil Lynn's plot, when the most he would say is like, he might drop in a fur face, but again, it was all done with like the underlying threat. And the way I'm writing him is I'm seeing Mark Texeira's Skeletor from those mini comics and some Alcala and some Filmation, and it's all merging into one. The beauty of it is, once you start writing that, you just hear that voice. I'm not talking about Oppenheimer, I just mean the Skeletor voice, because it's there. I mean, yes, you're writing a traditional villain. It's like, I'm a bad guy, I want to do this. But as I've said before, the reason I said no evil uncles is that this Skeletor is the demon from another dimension. That's all he is. He came to this planet, he came to, I'm not talking about Infinita, even though that could be a thing, but I'm just saying he came to this planet. We talk about that literally on the first few pages. It's not like an origin story, but he comes to this planet and guess what? He wants the seat of all power, which is Castle Grayskull. It's that thing. And Beastman is with him, and Beastman's not like, Beastman's obviously kind of his savage henchman, but he's not running off going, don't shoot my bottom, Skeletor, or anything like that. It's very much that, again, you guys know, Diamond Ray Disappearance Beastman, Dragon Invasion Beastman, Prince Adam No More Beastman, the Beastman that is like, yeah, give it a chance. And I'm not going to say like Beastman's going to overthrow Skeletor or anything like that, but you just want that thing of, they're not all mates. Even though I've described the best kind of He-Man and She-Ra stories as the villains and the heroes are families in some weird way, especially with the villains. They're like a crazy family, like a messed up family in some way. But it's just keeping those relationships as they are. I don't want to deviate and have, Skeletor, he'll probably zap Beastman, but not on his bottom, or not this or not that. And it's, I just kind of started writing this thing, and I thought, I can still do this. And primarily as well, to kind of praise you guys for it. When I did that, when I read out Adam's Ethereum side, that script I did back in like the 90s, when I read that out, reading that, I thought, I forgot how much I enjoyed writing, clearly, because I really enjoyed writing that thing, and I really enjoyed reading it for the first time in 10, 15 years or whatever it was. So when I started writing this thing, it was, I do like writing a lot. And that was obviously what Zadok Angel, bless him, taught me when we were doing the episode of your website. I hated writing, and even though we were doing these fanfics, it was like, I don't really want to do that. And we did the website, and he said, look, enjoy writing. And obviously I've written throughout the years, but I haven't written a comic book script since I did the IDW one for the Ghostbusters one for IDW, that kind of 9-page backup story. So I reinstalled the script writing program I've got, and it's, oh my God, just writing is so much fun, and going, no, I'll change that and I'll do that and I'll make reference to this and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I did think about reading like the first couple of pages on here if you want. I don't know, just like as a big teaser.
Hey, absolutely. You can do that. We could be the premiere of it. And by the way, did you give any date when it's possibly going to have its debut of when you're going to do this?
I'm hoping, what we're in now, mid-June, so I'm really hoping, because I think Adam and I are going to, we've started conversing about Adam Moore, the artist. So you've got Adam Moore doing art, Doosan doing colours, of course, who else does colours? And Andrew Kramer doing text and speech bubbles. So it's kind of like basically the return of Faker Crew, plus Adam Moore as the artist this time. So it's, it's just people with a shared passion, I guess. Was even talking to Danielle Galerta, I was saying, like, I don't know how many issues I've got in, but it'd be great to have you like jump in and write an issue as well, because I really like what she's done over the years. So who knows? It's still very early days. Like I've said to people, we could do 5 pages and then be shut down. But the plan is I want to aim for like the start of July, whether that's the first week or something like that, where we at least put the cover up, and then the cover, and then page 1, and then page 2. So I mean, when you think about it like that, it's you get 52 pages a year. That's pretty awesome. But also, it sounds crazy. That doesn't seem like as much work than I thought it was. But then I think back to Return of Faker and how much work we put into that. It's like, we were working on that daily, daily, nightly, and ever so rightly. But so hopefully early July. That's the plan.
Okay. Well, we're definitely honored that you're going to be able to read this and have it premiere here on Fans of Power. So
I'll read it like a comic script. So I've got the I've probably gone very white there because I need to read this. So I can't see you guys. I'm afraid I can't see your beautiful faces. So I'll have to. Can you still see me and everything?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read this. This is the funny thing. Even Doosan hasn't heard this yet because I kind of wanted to. I'm not going to read every single page because when you start getting into the like by about page 4 or 5, there's a few things I don't want people to know in that. So I thought, So anyway, it's called Alliance Reborn, Master Universe 85 by me. So what I've got is the way the script is written. You've got imagine like a table. You've got description on one side and dialogue on the other. So I'll read the description as well as give you the dialogue kind of thing. So page 1, drum roll, wide shot. So the way I envision like the first page is a series of 3 kind of wide images and then one big panel at the bottom. So wide shot, we see Eternia in space. Nearby are the twin moons and the sun in the background. And in the background we see that Jack Kirby-esque take on space with weird galaxies in the endless expanse kind of infinity. And then the caption says, the planet of Eternia. Panel 2, we are now closer to Eternia. We can see the different continents, but land and water, so we're getting into more detail now. Caption, a world in which mystical secrets and great power run through its very core. And then we see another wide shot, so we're into Eternia. It says, we see a bizarre craterous region with no sign of nature. The rims of the craters form large hills that dwarf many a misguided traveler. God, what a dick. This panel features an additional square to the far right within the panel, highlighting 2 figures that are at the base of one of these big craters. Caption, the mysterious Crimson Valley, where an ancient evil lies buried, soon to be uncovered by the true face of evil, ... And then the big dominating panel, Skeletor in the foreground, walking towards the camera from the waist up. In the background, skulking behind him, is Beastman. Because they're at the base of one of the craters, there's no sky visible, so it's just endless rocks going off into the sky. Beastman holds his master's Havoc staff. And then the caption reads, Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction. So yeah, page 2. Skeletor and Beastman are clearly searching for something around the base. And Skeletor says, I never thought I would return to this wretched place. Close-up of Skeletor. But in order to conquer this world, I must seek a former friend. Close-up of Beastman, almost shocked. Friend? Skeletor now stands before a tomb of sorts as Beastman approaches. Beastman said friend. Skeletor says, a generous term perhaps, but the witch queen of whom I speak was one of the most powerful beings on Eternia for a while. Beastman still behind Skeletor with his Havoc staff in hand. Beastman says, I'm confused, Master. This is the one kind of... You'll see that I'm not going down that Filmation route of kind of mocking Beastman, but I just have Skeletor here say, so Beastman says, I'm confused, Master, and Skeletor replies, that never fails to surprise me, Beastman. As in, it's not, you blundering fool, or, yeah, it's just That's
the way it should be, because Beastman is not as intelligent, so Skeletor should, that's part of his evil asshole personalities. He's going to be somewhat demeaning.
Yeah, exactly. He's a dick. So I don't know how much more I can read of this because we get straight into, or maybe I'll try and get around this. So page 3 we're on. So I've got full page Todd McFarlane styled panel in which we see Skeletor's head in profile, but the flashback to which he talks about and does voiceover is shown within the shadows of his hood. If you go back to Todd McFarlane's kind of 90s work and 80s, and Eric Larson did the same thing, they would always have a character in profile. And like the front of their face would be almost like rimlets. You'd see the features, but the back of their head would be black. And in that black, you would get the comic book panels.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a great thing that they did. So I said, but the flashback panels themselves, which contain Skeletor's voiceover, are shown within the shadow of his hood. The panels are all coloured light shades of purple, as we're dealing with history. Panel 2, we see Skeletor entering the portal, paying homage to the first Master Universe minicomic. I hate that minicomic so much, clearly, that I'm going to homage a panel from it. You see, You see Skeletor entering the portal, as we did in that classic He-Man and the Power Sword. So Skeletor says, oh man, there's certain things I can't read about this, but I'll try. When I first arrived on Eternia, prior to joining that accursed evil Horde, Panel 3, Skeletor emerging from the portal in the region that would eventually be known as Snake Mountain, but before there is no Snake Mountain, just that familiar, uninviting place. Long before I enslaved you and the others to do my bidding, he's talking to Beastman, obviously. Oh, I can't. We see Skeletor stood proudly next to, could this be could be a dramatic upshot of the pair? And Skeletor says, I allied myself with a witch. Skeletor and, overthrowing an undersea kingdom with the Aquaticans fleeing for their lives. We had dominance over this planet, from the plains of Perpetua to the Sea of Rakash. We were unstoppable. Then we see another panel. In the foreground, we see Skeletor and as well as and the Sorceress looming over them, possibly levitating. Skeletor says, however, I've got to be careful how I word this. However, the mystical being that once wandered Eternia, and the newly arrived guardian of Castle Grayskull used their combined powers to imprison Beastman in close-up, maybe with his hand near his mouth, as if he's around a campfire hearing wonderful. It's kind of like what Tyler's doing right now. That's how Beastman is, just like, tell me more. So he goes, Beastman asks, how did you escape? Skeletor stood in front of the tomb, kind of looking back at Beastman, says, as much as it pains me to say this, was a tad more powerful than I. A flashback panel, coloured the same as before, shows Skeletor fleeing as and the Sorceress unleashed their power upon So whilst the pair focused their energies on I escaped. Skeletor looking at the tomb we are now looking at from the tomb's point of view. His arms are outstretched as he examines some markings. We see Beastman in the background, still with the Havoc Staff. I can't really read much more.
I have a pretty good idea of who is, though, just by some of the things James is saying. I'm like, I think I know who he's talking about.
There's two characters. So Skeletor says, but it has now been.
But I'm thinking particularly. Well, now that you emphasize, I'm like, okay, I think I have a.
Obviously, don't spoil. Yeah, obviously.
Oh, no. I'm not saying anything. I'm just like, I like to think I have a pretty good idea of like I'm thinking a lot of times how James thinks too. So I'm like, if this is where I think it's going, like, it's gonna be high noon in my pants right now, dude. This is gonna be amazing.
So he says, but it has been many years now since disappeared from our world. Thus, only a small fraction of the Sorceress's magic will be keeping imprisoned. Beastman says, but what of its powers? Guided by my hand, will be able to set foot inside Castle Grayskull. And then he says, I will also be able to dismiss that foolish Evelyn from my presence once and for all. Actually, the way I've got it worded, this may offend some people, is that I had him say, I will also be able to dismiss that foolish Evelyn Powers from my presence once and for all. I just thought it was like a nice throwback. It's like, we don't want to hear about Biff Beastman, but also Evelyn Powers was such a great name, but that's just me. But yeah, I think, and then Skeletor, here we go. This is not a spoiler. Skeletor's wide shot of Skeletor and Beastman. Skeletor is turning to Beastman, reaching out his hand. Hand me the Havoc Staff. Skeletor somewhat closer, but very menacing. So you get like his eyes. And the Diamond of Mysticor. Beastman handing over both items. We don't see Skeletor in this panel. Maybe one of his hands in the background. Off panel. I for some reason, I love this bit of dialogue. Skeletor says, Ethereal artifacts are far easier to locate these days, implying that it's so easy to travel between worlds. And then kind of they open the tomb, kaboom, and then you get the big splash page, so I mean, I can't go into too much detail, obviously, from that point on, but
that was enough of a good taste. I mean, we're using our imaginations and just envisioning what you did, just like stories back in the day. So what you just given us a taste of, like, it's good enough. And hopefully, if July, like you said, you could start off in July, that'd be fantastic. If it doesn't happen until a little bit later, it'll still be okay. But what's great is seeing fans like you. You're doing this, and like you said, you're not doing this for money. You're not doing any kind of Kickstarter, so GoFundMe, Patreons. This is all out of love, and that's something that not many people do. So, I mean, it's great, and I applaud you and thank you for doing that, because it keeps Masters of the Universe alive and Princess of Power and just giving us stuff that we haven't had in years. And, like I said, for free, you can't beat that, and that's really great of you to do.
I was talking to Danielle, and I said, the thing I worry about kind of is that I'm suddenly doing, well, this is my take on He-Man and She-Ra. I don't want to do it. I'm not suddenly going to introduce a character that kind of annihilates all the other characters or anything like that. I'm playing about with what we've got established, and I'm not creating like a new timeline or this.
And that's the way it should be. I feel like, there's so many characters that have not been played with that much. Like, why the hell would you want to bring new characters into the sandbox? You've got a massive sandbox of characters to play with. You've got a plethora of characters,
and from two different worlds. That's the beauty of it as well. And I just thought, like the one of the things I thought was, and again, people might go, yeah, but that doesn't make sense. And it's like, but it doesn't not make sense. So the fact that I have Skeletor come to Eternia And I say he comes to Eternia before he joins the evil Horde, because obviously we saw in the Secret of the Sword he's with the Horde in the origin, but it's not implied that he wasn't on Eternia before that. Like the Horde could have invaded, as we saw in Origin of the Sorceress, and they could have said, right, we're going to obliterate you unless you side with us. And Skeletor could have said okay, and then becomes Hordak's pupil for more power or whatever. I didn't mind the idea of Skeletor being Hordak's pupil, but I love the idea that Skeletor could have already been on Eternia. It's just playing about with what we already know. And like I said, one of the characters is very much from that early kind of canon, and it's a case of bringing that in and kind of paying respect to what was already established and bringing that in and making it kind of make sense as best I can, but not suddenly going, and this is where we're going from, this is the new origin. It's not that at all. It's just, let's play about with these things and have fun with it. And like I say, tell a new story. And, I mentioned the stone from Mystical that Skeletor's got, and he's like, Etheria is much easier to get to these days. So from that one line, we've established that there's already a connection between... So She-Ra exists at this point. We know this, and she's a part of these adventures going forward at some point. But I love the idea that, and this is kind of like the subplot is, he's got this jewel, this thing from Diamond from Mystical, and when he uses it, that has an effect on Mystical. So then we cut at some point in a few issues. Maybe we're in Mystical. I don't really know. In a few issues, maybe we're in Mystical dealing with what happened when he unleashed this ultimate evil on Eternia. So it's that you don't have to read every issue, but you could go boink and tell new stories and have little bits of story arc and Easter eggs peppered around.
And
it works
and as
great.
Tyler said,
Go ahead,
that's how it needs to be. You're not going at it with, we got to throw these big extravagant ideas, we got to do crossovers. You are breaking it down to what's already been established and just playing around with it. And that's all we need. That's all anything needs.
Yeah. I've got no desire to suddenly go, I'm going to kill off Man-at-Arms to make a statement, or I'm going to kill off that character. I don't mind people doing that if they're telling a story from beyond. Because I have no doubt, like as much faith as I've got in Revelation, and I really do think that show is, from what I'm hearing about it, it's coming from a very good place. Very different to, what we've, it may be that it comes from a very good place. And guess what? Some of us don't like it, some of us do. That might happen. But I think with that, because they're telling a story beyond what we know, they're not obviously, New Adventures, I'm guessing, doesn't exist, but they're doing this story. And so maybe they're going to... I'd probably kill off a character or two or something for impact. And it's like, okay, you can do that. But with my stories, because I'm telling it in this certain timeline, like prior to the Three Towers maybe, and after kind of the Savage era, I've got no desire to kill off any characters to get a story point. It's just, I don't need to. All I need to do is tell good stories and adventures and have twists and do that, but not suddenly... oh, this character died and let's mourn them forever. Because then people reading that, the moment you do that, I'm going to take people out of the 85 era. If I suddenly kill off Orko, people are going to be like, wait, but what? And it wouldn't make sense. So it's like, I'm afraid, sorry to some people, Orko's going to be very much alive.
And he should be. Yeah,
there's that thing of, you want, the problem I have with, and this, I've said this before publicly, probably, the problem I have with a lot of fanfics is, I'm going to write a fanfic and I'm going to kill off this character. The best fanfics are you tell a story from A to Z, and it feels like it's a part of the... If suddenly I did a film, like I wrote a Filmation script and I killed off the sorceress, you immediately will go in the back of your... Even if you think that's the greatest story I've ever read, in your subconscious, you're like, as a fanfic though. So the thing is, you tell it within the laws, as it were, of what's been established, because you can tell a good story. And that's where the skill comes in, is you're like, right, how do I tell something new? How do I bring something new to this whilst keeping it within this playing field, as opposed to suddenly going, right, I'm going to suddenly do this or that. And people go, oh, it's clearly a fanfic. They may say that when they see the first few, origin panels and be like, well, that's clearly something that he's coming up with himself. But again, it's all within the context of this. If I suddenly kill off certain characters, it would just be like, what? So yeah, I'm trying to keep it, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to keep it quite simple, but also, as you kind of heard with that dialogue, it's I'm trying to create atmosphere and history and legend and a threat, as opposed to, Capture Prince Adam or something. It's like, no, don't get me wrong, I love those episodes, but I don't need to see that for the 50 billionth time.
And you explained it there with everything you just said. Beyond people trying to read too much into what you did when you were promoting it, this is what you mean when you say, before a Keldor. You just explained, this is the Skeletor that is a demon from another dimension. So if there were fans, let's say, that came along and said, wait a second, I thought Skeletor was He-Man's uncle. And to start going to that, you're like, no, this is the Skeletor we're talking about. It's not disregarding saying, oh, it's because Keldor is crap, even though a lot of people don't like him, but some people do. But this just say, yeah, this is the Skeletor. It's a demon from another dimension. So if people just can wait and be patient and just obviously just look at something and not jump to a conclusion, they can find out all the answers very easily instead of just throwing out accusations.
Well, if they wanted answers, they could actually do their own damn research and watch Filmation and look at some of the other various canons that don't have that dumbass idea of connecting Skeletor and Randor as brothers and all that kind of stupid Star Wars-esque bullshit. They don't have to. James shouldn't have to explain anything. If you are a fan of this mythology, you got to know there are variations to a lot of Grayskull, He-Man, and some of there is no Adam and Skeletor's past and stuff like that. It's just
the other thing as well is, and it's not me saying that doesn't exist anymore just because I'm writing it. It's like, yeah, you can say with these 85 stories, oh, in a few years Keldor appears. You can do that if you want. Like, I'm just telling stories in this amount of time. You can do whatever you want. I love the idea that after these stories, He-Man goes into space because, as I've said, love the new adventures. So yeah, and the other thing is, I kind of want to take us back to a time when there was one person who possessed the Sword of Power and one person who possessed the Sword of Protection, and that was it. It was their destinies to receive these swords. I don't mind the idea of a legend, but I don't mind the idea of King of Castle Grayskull. I don't need there to be 500 billion He-Mans before He-Man.
Oh, God, no.
All you do with that is we've seen it in so many other forms of media. All you do is just dilute this character. You've got He-Man. It's like, okay, well, we'll have Hero, and okay, we'll have King Grayskull, and okay, we'll have Dare and Hero 2 and Hero Remix, and Hero European Dance Techno Remix. It's like, God, can we just have one most powerful man in the universe? And that's not me going, I can't tolerate anything else. It's just, you have to understand, by just constantly doing this, He-Man becomes a guest in his own bloody universe.
The uniqueness and specialty of that character that made him so important, like you said, is watered down because there's so many damn versions. Like, okay, it's not special anymore. You're right. One He-Man, one She-Ra, one Sword of Power, one Sword of Protection. That's all you need.
And I just want to say, that's not an attack on the multiverse comic. Like, I don't mind the idea of Elseworlds. I've always said the way I accepted New Adventures, like as a kid, that cartoon came on, I was like, why am I watching Jason the World Warriors? I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then eventually, the way my brain kind of dealt with it in the early 90s was, treat it as like, as Marvel used to call it, what if? It's like, what if, He-Man was in space? That could be this story. And then the 2002 cartoon came along. It's like, Eternia doesn't look like I want it to, but they are good stories. And also, my brain can deal with this if I treat it like that. And that's the way I think you treat a lot of these things. And if you don't like it, that's fine. You can watch the New Adventures and go, yeah, I'm not really liking this. Like, that's fine. But, like I say, it's... I don't know. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm just waffling. With the multiverse, and I can appreciate alternate takes on He-Man. I think for a time, I think you can go beyond. I think when you have about 500, it's a bit like, oh, chill out. But
right.
I think you can have alternate versions. Like who knows? I could do a story and suddenly like He-Man from space pops up. I probably won't, but you could do that and be like, who are you? That's not going to happen. But that would be how I do it, and that kind of thing. Or I don't want to do, and then there's all these previous He-Mans before He-Man, because it just
right.
Who He-Man is.
Well, we look forward to what you're going to have hopefully ready in July, and we do appreciate and thank you for what you just read to us. And now it's the part of the show where it's going to probably be you and Tyler the most, because Tyler loves these moments, especially always. I mean, the amount of knowledge he knows of Filmation along with you. I just like hearing you guys commentate together. So when we get to the commentating right here in a couple minutes, when Nathan and Tyler give the go-ahead, I'm probably going to be silent most of the time because I'm just going to look forward to just hearing what you guys have to say.
I did get both of these books that James had worked on. I got let me hand. I mean, these guys can't see me, but the people at home will. Got this in the mail from James this week. I think you said you mailed this out to me about 3 weeks ago, so that took.
Yeah, the postal system's atrocious at the moment. Yeah, it's.
And then I got the book from Dark Horse that James worked on. So this big heavy thing that I could bludgeon someone to death with, and when I opened it up, James, you gave this episode, if I remember correctly, an 8 out of 10.
Wow, that seems quite generous. Oh no, hang on a sec. Oh, that's because I'm remembering this rightly. Alex Hawkey did the She-Ra reviews.
Ah,
so that's what I was. Because I always say Alex Hawkey is the She-Ra expert. So Alex Hawkey co-wrote the She-Ra section and did the She-Ra reviews. Because I was like, I don't remember liking Horde Prime Takes Holiday as it's a good episode, but I didn't think it was up there. But obviously that's Alex Hawkey's
right
rating.
on. See,
big shout out to all
I was thinking that it was you, so I was, because after I watched the episode, I was like, I don't know if it doesn't really feel like 8 out of 10 to me.
there you go.
What made you choose it by chance, James? What made you choose this episode for commentary?
I don't know. I just thought, I don't believe we've done, well, obviously we haven't done this before, but also, I hadn't watched, funnily enough, I watched it last night as a kind of precursor, just to kind of refresh my memory. Not that I needed refreshed. I know all the music cues from this episode, but this is an example of kind of a fun story, like a fun crossover. And there's big stakes, blooming giant warship. It's I love the idea, and I mean at this point in the series, He-Man and Skeletor are crossing over like to Etheria as if they're crossing the road. There's no real challenge in it, but at the same time, it makes for a fun story. And is this? I think Bob Ford is involved in this as well as Straczynski, so it's like a double header of really good writers.
Okay, well we'll probably cue this over to Nathan, Tyler, when you guys are ready, and when Tyler wants to give the countdown. We'll start this sucker up.
And once again, I forgot to put the link down below in the description. So if you guys want to go ahead and search for that really fast on YouTube and have that pulled up, then we'll Tyler, go ahead and give us a countdown. We'll get going.
All right. 3, 2, 1, action.
Ding. Are we all dinging at the same time? So I'm watching it on my telly on the other side of the room. Usually I'd watch it on my screen here, but I'm watching it over there. So Dora's walking to the camera, and now we see.
Might have to turn it down to the.
I think I'm in sync with James here.
Okay, I've got a horse. There's a Dora. I don't need the dialogue. I know the dialogue. I think she says something about by the power of Grayskull. Oh, it's not that, is it?
Something along those lines.
Transformation happening.
Yep, we're all in queue. Yep.
Thank you. And there's She-Ra, the self-proclaimed Princess of Power. And like going back to 85 just quickly, I really want to write She-Ra. I don't think I've ever written anything really, apart from some of these fanfic things I've done. But yeah, a good She-Ra.
You did some stuff for Serial Geek though, didn't you, for She-Ra?
Oh, of course I did. The Secrets Out. Blimey. Yeah. One of my favourite things I've ever written. Yeah, that She-Ra story I wrote. I completely forgot.
I never wrote nothing for her. That's all right.
I don't write things for women. Why would I? Oh yeah, hang on a sec, because I love writing. So yeah, here we are. Is it Bob? Yes, story by Straczynski, teleplay by Ford, directed by Marshall Moore. Actually, I wrote down notes this time. I thought, I'm going to be prepared this time. But the thing I know about this episode, this is without looking at notes, and it's something that when we were doing the BCI DVD sets. Alex highlighted. Me and Zadok had already clocked it in the when we were reviewing. I think Horde Prime Takes Holiday. Is that Horde Prime talks about this ship, the Velvet Glove, which is by far the greatest name for a ship ever.
I love that name.
Idea. It's so cool. And Horde Prime says once I had 2 ships. And when you see this, you're like, what? Episode 18? Why are we talking about 2 ships? It's because good goddamn production order. This episode should have appeared I think about episode 50. It should have appeared much later in the season because production codes were given to when the episode script was just even remotely approved. This got in at episode 18. Or the other alternative is episode 18 got removed and then this ended up there. So what happens is this takes place after Zoo's story because in that episode, Horde Prime's got a giant flagship called Monstron. So this is the other ship. And it's really weird because also in this episode, Multibot is in it. Modulok hasn't even come to Etheria yet, and Modulok creates Multibots. So already out of continuity-wise, it's what's going on here, But yeah, it's I always loved Horde Prime, even though we never saw much of him apart from the giant hand. I made a note that he was designed by Dale Hendrickson, who went on to, I believe, work on The Simpsons. So not bad from going from She-Ra character designs to working on The Simpsons. Also, I just want to point out something about Mantenna that was brought to my attention yesterday. I was watching it with my friend Sam, and she said, she goes, why is this guy, why has he only got 2 boots? And I was like, that's a good point. He's got 4 legs and 2 boots. Why have we never? Why is that? Does anybody know?
I'd say it's like a color break or something like that. I mean, kind of like with Superman. Like he's got red trunks on an all blue suit. Just something to kind of break the color up. I don't know.
As opposed to just 4 blue legs. Yeah, he has like.
The only reason it ever stood out to me was when I colored them in some of those She-Ra coloring books, and they had it to where you had to color the front ones but not the back ones. So I always wondered why am I not coloring those? But I just went with it.
I did too. The figure I didn't know was supposed to be 4 legs. I thought it was just like 2 legs with like these big toes on both feet.
Yeah, it was proper weird design. The figure. I mean, obviously, it's a fantastic figure as well. But I love the cartoon interpretation. But again,
I do too, by far.
If I was to write this guy, you kind of have to write him as he appeared in very few episodes, where he's like a proper sniveling, conniving, little creepy guy, as opposed to I am Mantenna, a henchman for the Horde. He has to be like, sucking up slimy, which they kind of got in Filmation. And yeah, now we're on the brilliant beauty of being able to watch other planets just randomly. They've just been looking at Etheria. And then
everybody has, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what?
Yeah, that was a funny part for me to see that Sorceress and Adam were watching, and then Skeletor's also watching, and I'm just like,
yeah, just
how coincidental that everyone's just watching everyone at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, like I've said before, I was never the biggest fan of the She-Ra cartoon. If I knew He-Man was going to be in it, which would often be in the first few minutes or something, I was just, I'm in for the ride. And that's obviously why they did that as well, because not every young kid, guy and girl, was watching She-Ra. But I wasn't a big fan of She-Ra just by herself until many years later. I was like, oh God, I love this show. But when I was a kid, it's just like, I'm all right with it. And but yeah, when I'd see a He-Man appearance, I'm all in, for this. But yeah, so obviously now Skeletor just happens to be looking at the view screen, but it's a great plan. But I mean, it does beg to differ. Beg the question: how does Skeletor just transport from Snake Mountain to a ship in another universe? It's just like, wow, that's some power. Oh, I remember like in the storyboards, there was a deleted scene. So the Velvet Glove is huge, as you see here, but in the deleted scene, they showed the planet of Etheria, and the ship was as big as as wide as the planet. It was a fantastic shot, and just this huge shadow looming over it. But they may have taken it out because it was so absurdly big. But the whole point of the ship is, look, as you can see, it's supposed to kind of dwarf the planet. And it's such a cool visual as well. Filmation obviously limited by their budget, but just this weird shadow creeping across the sky. And they're not exactly sure what it is. It's like, there's something up there. I'm going to transform and get on my flying unicorn and see what's going on up there. So, yeah.
Did you ever have any visions in your head of what you thought Horde Prime would look like fully beyond that just gigantic metal hand? Did you ever try to think of something? Or?
I always loved the idea of, in that classic, Oz thing of being a big monster and then just being a normal guy or something. But I think the best one, I think I spoke to Dusan at length about this, in years that followed, I just thought Stampede from Brave Star would have been the best Horde Prime, because that was a terrifying design. If you'd seen that emerge from the shadows in the She-Ra cartoon, you'd have thought, oh God, take me now, because that was a terrifying design with the saliva and the smoke, and it was just like this reptilian beast. If that had been Horde Prime, Lord have mercy, it had been fantastic.
That was some of Filmation's most beautifully animated work. I mean, by far.
Yeah, easily. This is one of my favorite action scenes, I think, one of my favorites in the She-Ra series. Just the idea of Hordak firing a giant freeze ray at Etheria, and it's the fact that She-Ra kind of goes, oh, something's going on up there, and then he's like, yes, master. And the way the music kicks in, he's like, fire, and it's just such an epic scene. It's the rescored kind of He-Man music that they use here from the He-Man show. It's just the idea of this huge ice cannon about to turn the entire planet to ice, and just She-Ra going, okay, and it's the fact that it overpowers She-Ra as well. It's not like, I saved the day. I'm going to use my shield to try and stop this giant ice ray, and just her against the odds. This shot here where she's like flying against the the ice. Oh, I forgot. Hordak's got his little binoculars. That's cute.
Oh yeah.
Doing. But yeah, it's such a great scene. This the music just intensifies. More power coming up, and it just keeps increasing the power. Yeah, I think that's such a great action scene. But the fact that She-Ra is overpowered says this ship is a lot. You know, this is a badass ship, and the fact that this isn't like, you know, I'm sure some people like to say, oh, this is He-Man saving She-Ra again. It's like, no, it's them working together. It's the twins of power. When I was watching the Best of She-Ra episodes yesterday with my friend Sam, we were laughing. She was like, I thought, you know, everything I've been led to believe about the show over the years is that She-Ra was always being saved by He-Man. We watched about 3 episodes in which She-Ra saves He-Man every time. So, yeah, because when you're the star of your own show, you don't really need saving. And, yeah, I love this scene of them working together to, you know, stop the ice ray from hitting the planet. That is odds right there.
You know, and it makes you wonder with
He-Man.
Oh, hell yeah. And it makes you wonder, you know, with Skeletor and Hordak both thinking, hey, they'll take the ship, and then, you know, they'll take over Etheria, and then Eternia. It's like, wonder why didn't Horde Prime just do it? You know, if he had the ship that's so powerful, why didn't he ever do it?
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's that. I guess it's one of those kind of story points you think, don't think about it. But yeah, the other thing about
his age, isn't he like 500 years older or something? Because wasn't he mentioning earlier, Horde Prime, like he hasn't did anything about 500 years? It makes you wonder the age of the character too.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, I mean, and obviously there's that one episode, is it The Peril of Whispering Woods, where Prince Zed says, my uncle or something, or he calls him Uncle Hordak, and he's Horde Prime's son, implying that Horde Prime is Hordak's brother, which is just such a weird thing.
Yeah, that's what had me really confused with the whole age thing, yeah.
That shot of Skeletor as well, the upshot. I always remember, I'll never forget seeing the storyboard by Don Manuel, and there's like a little note. So it's Skeletor in upshot. And Don Manuel wrote next to the storyboard, "Dear animation department or layout department, please don't use a stock Skeletor pose. I want like a dramatic upshot of Skeletor stood there, not Skeletor just, you know, in a typical Filmation stock pose with the Havoc staff." So they actually did stick to that and go, yeah, let's do something new for this. I mean, it was just quite a scary thing that you're storyboarding and you're having to tell people, make it look really good.
I like this part in the episode as well because they're just fighting each other, but also just destroying the ship in the process.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot. Yeah, Mantenna's got his teleportation button all of a sudden, which probably would have come in handy like in a billion other episodes. But
you always know what something's going to happen when you see those extra details. Like, something's going to happen this time.
I always remember the one odd moment like that is in The Cat and the Spider, when you see He-Man's got the circle on his belt, and it's like, oh, where did that come from? He doesn't use it. It's just the one time they decided, I guess, let's make him look like the toy.
Right.
And I love He-Man's line, the battle of evil. It's like, yeah, this is pretty much the idea. Again, this is how you end the first act of an episode. The battle between Skeletor and Hordak. Whoever wins that battle has control of the most powerful warship in the galaxy. That's an amazing idea. It's like, yep, that's then some pretty high stakes. So then you end up with this situation of how's He-Man and She-Ra gonna get up there? Luckily, He-Man has the hook with the rope of unlimited length. It was a gift from the sorceress. I was like, it's kind of a sucky birthday gift.
It's supposed to be unbreakable, and that's one hell of a throw he's got to do.
Yeah, I do love that though. There's the way they write He-Man in this episode is so fun. You can tell. I'm sure it's Bob Ford doing a lot of this, a lot of the heavy lifting with this, because it's his kind of He-Man. A Bob Ford line in this is when later in the episode He-Man says, "They say I'm the most powerful man in the universe. I guess I better prove it." That is a Bob Ford line, because Bob Ford also wrote The Rainbow Warrior, where He-Man says, "Normally I don't approve of Skeletor's methods, but I have to admit they work." Those lines that only Bob Ford would write, because he almost. He wasn't mocking the show. He was just pointing out certain things that were like, oh, yeah, that's a good point, you know. So the idea that He-Man is known that people refer to him as the most powerful man in the universe. I mean, he says at the start of every episode. And obviously Skeletor getting the upper hand, which is something that happened in a lot of Skeletor and Hordak battles. When you go back to of Shadows and Skeletor, kind of beats in there, obviously with the help of Shadow Weaver. But yeah, there's He-Man.
That's a hell of a climb from She-Ra too. Figured it would take forever, but she got her ass up there pretty quick.
Yeah, she got.
Well, the other thing I was kind of wondering as I was watching, I was like, yeah, I noticed Swiftwind was kind of there and got sort of thrown back during this point, but why couldn't Swiftwind have just given a lift, at least for part of the way?
Yeah, well, the other thing is in other episodes, and obviously production-wise, this would have been aired much later in the series. We'd seen She-Ra and Swiftwind's flying in space, and obviously this is one of the few times in the series where She-Ra's like, oh yeah, I can't breathe in space. And then you look at Assault on the Hive, they're all just walking around space with no, space.
Her and He-Man, and they're all having no problems out there.
Yeah, He-Man riding one of your favourite characters, Comic Cat, and it's just...
Exactly. Hated his voice in the episode, but otherwise it was cool to see him. Just couldn't stand Comic Cat's voice. Good God.
Who did the voice? I think it was George DiCenzo. Yeah, George DiCenzo. Again, another great scene. You've got two big action scenes in this episode. One is the ice ray being aimed at Etheria. This is the other one where He-Man has to... I love the idea of this. He-Man has to stop this gigantic warship from moving. And he, for a while, does it. But even then, it's not... he's not completely... saving the day. He's doing the best he can. I remember the storyboards for this. There was a deleted scene where you see that shot of He-Man going along in full body, and he goes through. It's so funny. He goes through like a wall, a thing. He just goes through all these different objects. And
really?
Yeah, it would have been such a cool visual. Just see him going like, oh, just going through things after like the various items. But yeah, they just end up showing the shot of the Whispering Woods, and then he gets catapulted into space. I love that though. The dialogue. Oh. As he's going through the trees, like, yikes!
But you definitely got a good sense of this just strength and the pull. Like, you could actually feel it. It felt like he was, like you could believe it. That was pulling, he's holding on, and boy, when he hits the mountain and he's holding it, the struggle, it felt so, real. Great detail.
I thought he was going to crotch himself right there, the way that they had that shot with his legs spread.
It's a really hard thing to convey what they're trying to do, because you've got a ship in space, you've got He-Man on the planet, and you've got to try and create that connection between the pair of the ship's going, it's carrying He-Man with it. And I think they do a really good job directing this scene, and especially with this shot of Skeletor looking at He-Man, and like, so He-Man. And it's that, He-Man's holding on. It's like, oh, Skeletor's, here we are again, me and He-Man in this constant tug of war, in this case, literally. And the solution to this with She-Ra just cutting the line seems a bit mean on He-Man, but it is brilliant. And the fact we see He-Man struggling and the rope shaking so much, it really does show, I am the most powerful man in the universe, within reason.
And also always the detail of like when they did say, the rope is unbreakable, and then it broke because He-Man's probably, what the hell happened? But then he realized, She-Ra cut the rope. I even like when they show that scene a little bit later when he's like laying down and you see all the rope keeps coming and coming and coming. He's got just tons of it there. Yeah.
That is really good, yeah. I think that I remember I never saw this as a kid. I don't remember seeing this episode as a kid. I'm sure I would have been really annoyed when Skeletor initially says, I'm going to warp this ship to Eternia and oh no, it's Horde who says at the start, isn't it? But I think Skeletor's plan is to do the same thing. And you just think, oh, it's kind of like in He Ain't Heavy when Skeletor says, activate the mirror and this time we'll kidnap King Randor. And it's like, oh, I want to see that story. It's this is He-Man's holding on for dear life still. We're all still at the same point, right? Skeletor's about to crash the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on mine, she just cut the rope. I don't know if mine might have jumped behind her.
I'm not on the rope cutting
I'm not
yet.
there either.
Yeah. Oh shit! Mine must have hit him. Oh god.
Here we go. She's just turned right. Sword, a helmet to sword. Slice. There we go. And kaboom. Classic filmation. Make sure the explosion happens off camera so we don't see. We have to animate the ship crashing. Yeah. So Skeletor's doing his destroyed. He's all like, yeah. And now the rope's going to Etheria. And his Swiftwind. Yeah.
All right, I'm in sync with you guys.
Yeah, He-Man's just kind of sat there looking all despondent. And the way that's actually really cute. I never noticed that. The way the rope lands on his knee, the rest of it. Like,
yeah. It reminds me of the chain in Twins. Remember when he got the guy at the end and the chain just kept coming down, ding, 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 ding. That's what it reminded me of.
Nice references. But yeah, I do love this scene with She-Ra saving Horde, and it's Yeah, with Skeletor deserting as well. It's just, it sums up their personalities really, really good. It's like, why
But
do
they're
you
still heroes that they don't want to see. I mean, hell, it's their enemies and their nemesis and everything, but they still don't want to see them die. It's not like, okay, just let Hordak stay there and just die. Yeah, you're right. She's going to make sure that she saves them either way. They're enemies, but she's still going to save them.
Yeah. And I do like the touch here when she rips open the ship and all the kind of oxygen is sucked out, and I never noticed as he's sucked out, you see all these like objects hit him on the way out, kind of knocks him out.
Oh, I guess I didn't pay attention. I thought he just got sucked out. I never paid attention to all those objects.
He's totally getting sucked out, but it's just the way he's kind of, I think all the debris hits him at the same time. We get the big explosion. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's more debris on the explosion, just like everything vanishes. But again, this is a really good episode because, I mean, it's very far from what we think about. Go back to Diamond Ray. You wouldn't expect to see, you wouldn't expect He-Man to have a twin sister, but also you wouldn't expect He-Man in space, all this kind of weird stuff. But it's a great example of how She-Ra broadened the adventures of He-Man, how you could have this stuff with like She-Ra falling back into the Etherian atmosphere and using a shield to make sure her ass doesn't burn.
Yeah, I guess
Which, I don't know, I felt like she took too long. I feel like that would have been burned up pretty good.
The only shot I don't like of that is when He-Man first leaps on Swiftwind. We see it again. He's too big. I can't believe that made it through production. Like, when you see the far-off shot of He-Man on Swiftwind, it looks great. When he lands with Swiftwind, awesome.
It's weird. I get that same vibe where I told you there's that certain angle in, the cartoon Masters of the Universe when he's on Battle Cat, and there's this shot where he's, like, up on Battle Cat. Yeah, it's like, I can't stand that shot.
The funny thing about that shot is it was Gerald Thornton did the layout for that, the great Gerald Thornton from the mini-comics. Said, Here we go. You'll see He-Man in close-up where Swiftwind goes, told you she'd be all right, whatever. And He-Man's far too big there.
I know what you mean, yeah.
I do like, it's quite funny that shot of She-Ra holding Hordak. If you go back to, I think it's like Battle for Brightmoon, you have Hordak holding a door. It's like a mirror image if you look at the two. And then Hordak,
really?
Boom. This always seemed like a weird joke to wrap on when they're like, Hordak better have a good excuse. And then they just add that random joke at the end. I feel like, I think the ending should have been something better with maybe just Hordak, taking a beating from Horde Prime. The fact it just kind of, they end with the joke in a theater, like in the Rebel camp of like, oh, maybe he didn't have a good reason. It's like, really? That seems a bit. And then we get, obviously, might as well talk ahead of time about it, but we get the kind of really
PSA.
God.
The PSA.
When I was watching that, I was like, man, that was just a sharp left turn. That just came out of nowhere.
Well, the funny thing is, I've got the original storyboards for it, and they actually went into a kind of a different take. So obviously, it talks about if anyone's touched you, I mean, it's fantastic morale for what it is. If you're a kid and you had gone through this, you've got your heroes talking to you, and you maybe think in the back of your head, oh, maybe this is something I can talk about or whatever. But in the storyboards, the original script had He-Man and She-Ra saying, this is good touching, and they show like each other holding hands, and they say this touching is acceptable, and it's like, oh wow. The other thing is, if you go and watch there's a Brave Star episode called Call to Arms, and they basically just take the exact same dialogue and repurpose it for, like, I guess Brave Star 3030 and Fuzz. I think it's been a while since I watched it, but I remember that being a thing.
And that's also one of the very few times you didn't get to see, hey, it's Lookie, and where say, where did you find me? That's.
I'm not even sure if he was hiding in the episode. I can't remember. If he was, it would have been in one of those early Whispering Woods scenes. But a fun episode, man. Not one of my favourites, but definitely one of the more memorable crossovers because of the stakes.
Well, what do you rate it out of 10? What do you give that out of 10?
Oh, if I was to rate it, I don't know. I think I'd go about 6. It's never been. There's Lucky Lends a Hand is a better crossover. Sweet Bee's Home is an amazing crossover. Gateway to Trouble. These are all crossovers I think about. In terms of scope, it's one of the most epic tales of He-Man and She-Ra. It's like Warship owned by Horde Prime. It's like, oh, where's this going to go? I just think like certain, and there's great action scenes, but I think it's not it may be because it's Jay Straczynski and Bob Ford, who are very different writers. So it may be a clash of writers kind of thing with him going, this is the story I want to tell, and Bob Ford taking it in a different direction. I don't know. That kind of
So
happens.
A 6 out of 10 from you. What about you, Tyler? Because I always love when you guys sometimes would have different takes on the episode. Sometimes you'd fall on the same, middle ground. You'd have the same review, but what would you give that out of 10, Tyler?
I've never been a fan of this episode.
Oh, there you go.
You know what?
Yeah, I'd give it about
explains why Tyler was so quiet, and I thought it was hilarious because Joe, before we started, was like, "All right, well, I'm going to be quiet because I'm sure Tyler has a lot to say with James during." And then Tyler, I don't think, barely said anything.
Well, you know, Joe. When Joe's talking, I'm not going to try and interrupt Joe either. Too, I just stay back because I didn't have a whole lot of positive things to say. There are some good moments in. It is by no means, you know, greatest show on Eternia. Like, it's nothing like that. It's just Skeletor is portrayed so poorly in She-Ra. I think overall he is not menacing at all. I find him to be the joke that when people mention Skeletor in pop culture, they're thinking of this version of Skeletor. Yeah. They're not thinking of season 1, and it just kind of leaves a lot to be.
One of the best Skeletors, when you think about it, in probably the She-Ra series, is probably Assault on the Hive. Because he's really quite threatening in that episode.
Yeah.
He overthrows an entire race of people. He's not really joking in the episode. The ending where he gets caught by Comet Cat is a bit laughable, but he's pretty threatening in that, and less like you boob and you dolt and all this stuff. But I do know what you mean. I mean, of Shadows and Skulls, as great as that episode is, even Skeletor's not at his best. We never get that really in the series again. Whereas with He-Man, they tend to, you know, enable him to do certain things like Sweet Bee's Home or other things. Now that he's got a sister, and he can become a guest star rather than the lead character. So you're able to do more stuff with He-Man. But yeah, it's a fun episode. It's not one that I will go. If someone said, right, you got to take, you know, one crossover episode to a desert island to watch for the rest of your life, I'd be like, oh really? Okay. And I'd probably take Sweet Bee's Home just because it's the one that I enjoy the most, I think. Or Price of Freedom.
Yeah, I just and I don't think Hordak is portrayed as sinister as well. He's just downplayed a lot. When I see, you know, like his real asshole side and like for one of a horse, like his speech he gives to Swift, when I'm like, God, what a prick, man. Yeah. Like when you see that, I'm like, why don't we get that in every episode? And honestly, I've never really been a big fan of Straczynski's work on He-Man. Like, he's got some great ideas. I just don't find them to be executed very well. And maybe it's not his fault, but, you know, like, I think of The Origin of the Sorceress. Great idea. I just don't think it's that entertaining, though, overall. Like, it's got a lot of great things, just not, you know.
I think you're right. Like, I mean, I've always said Straczynski was a better writer on She-Ra than he was on He-Man. But what he was good at on He-Man was ideas. So that's why I really like Mistaken Identity. Not a great episode. But
yes, I love that episode, but God, it's so hard to sit through at times.
It's not one you go, I can't wait to see that scene again. It's a very clever episode. And then you get something like you say, Origin of the Sorceress, amazing because of what it represents. But it's not one I go, I can't wait to see this again. There was a few scenes in the script that were taken out that may have made it better. Like the original ending of The Origin of the Sorceress is pretty much beat for beat the same, but there was a scene where the sorceress brushes He-Man's face with the wingtip of a costume, and I was like, "Oh, that would have been beautiful if they did that." And said, "You will always be my, you know, whatever her line is about being my friend or whatever." And then transforms and takes off. And there was a bit when He-Man's fighting these, you know, when He-Man and the sorceress first get to the the ruins. They stay there overnight, and when halfway through the night, they're woken up by like these creatures called the Night Crawlers, and then He-Man and the Sorceress have to fight these creatures. I was like, that may have taken the episode and given it those action beats that would have made it a much better episode. But Straczynski on She-Ra was amazing. I think that's because he was so involved in a lot of the early work on it.
Yeah.
So like you know, Into the Dark Dimension, I think is fantastic, and yeah, other trying to think of other episodes he wrote, but on the whole, his She-Ra stuff is so much better than his He-Man stuff.
Now, he did Black Snow, didn't he? Or was that the Tilio?
No, yeah, actually, he did Black Snow. Was that Straczynski? Feels like a Straczynski episode, guys.
Yeah,
I should know that
because I felt like him and Larry, like they liked Modulok. I kind of feel like Modulok.
You're right. No, you're right about that. Was it Larry that did it? It was either Larry or Straczynski.
Because Straczynski wrote, I'm thinking like Happy Birthday Roboto, Mistaken Identity, both have got Modulok. It goes back to that whole episode swap, like Mistaken Identity should have come first.
Right,
Happy Birthday, you know.
Straczynski, yeah. But Whole Prime Takes Holidays. Yeah, it's an okay episode. It's not one of my favourite crossovers, but some people may love it, and all power to them, man.
As for the review, I think Tyler, he probably wouldn't even give it a 6. I'm assuming, what do you got, Tyler, a 4 or 3? But does it even get that?
No, I give it, I mean, it's an average. It's just, I love the idea. I love the Velvet Glove. It's visually, it's awesome looking. The shots of it hovering above the planet. It's just the execution. Like Hordak and Skeletor, like I expect more quality banter between those two, and it's always like, it's just kind of like, this could be done so much more effectively, and it never is. Like, it's just, it leaves a lot to be desired, and it just, when I see these characters portrayed a lot more, and I just take my stuff so much more seriously. It's hard for me to kind of embrace like the silly moments a lot of times. I'm okay with them. Not that this episode is trying to be silly by any means, but it's just, I give it an average. I'll give it a 5, because it's not it's not an offensive episode. It's just, I would never choose to voluntarily watch it in the sense that it just doesn't have enough for me. I mean, I'm always going to, crossover-wise, I'm always going to say Talent for Trouble. I absolutely love that episode, even though Skeletor's not in it, but I just think it's my favorite crossover, period. Price of Freedom would be 2. I really like that one a lot, too.
All right. Well, I was going to say, I'll pass it to the chat room if you guys have any questions for James or us, anything, cartoons, comics, whatever you want. Shoot them in the chat room right now. And while you're doing that, James, if you wanted to give us one of your other stories from back in the day, you said you had a taste of at least another one that maybe you'd want to read.
Yeah, I've got 2. There's one that's really good. I'm trying to figure out what the other one is, if that's good. I think this is more of a rescue plot, but it'd be fun to, if you want. I've got 2 if you want me to do them.
Well, if you want to do 2, how about give us 1, and the next time you come on, you do another one. It just keeps us wanting for more. You got to give us little bits, little tastes.
Okay. Let me just write this one. Okay. Is this the one? Let me just check the date on this to see when the last time I accessed this file to make sure it's the right one. Means to an end. Properties. 2006. Okay, right, yeah. So I wrote this back in the 90s, and then I think I kind of tarted it up in the mid-noughties. So like about 14 years ago, I last looked at this, or last tackled this. I reread this after we did the Adam the Ethereum thing recently, a few episodes ago, and I was like, oh my god, this is the only reason I wouldn't read this is that I might turn this into like one of the Master Universe 85 comics, but I don't think I will. But that's the only reason I wouldn't read it, because I really like this story a lot. Okay, right. Here we go. Okay, so means to an end. So here we go. How many pages is it? 2 pages. Strap in. So Hordak is planning to attack the small village of Angel. God, I was really quite basic in my references. Obviously, Zadok Angel. So I really went all out with that reference. Hordak is planning to attack the small village of Angel just outside of Brightmoon, believing the village to be a threat to his power. Hordak explains to Mantenna that the village houses a small band of rebels known as the Freedom Fighters, known for their unorthodox ways of rebelling against the might of the Horde. Hordak continues to explain that the group uses violence and explosives without fear of consequence. So Hordak's basically saying, these guys are more trouble than the blooming She-Ra a lot, because they don't mind, killing us, basically. Thanks to Cal's bravery, Adora and Bo learn that Hordak is planning an attack on the village of Angel in an effort to destroy it. Adora remarks that the village of Angel is the current home to the Freedom Fighters. Well, basically, now it's the rebels' time to talk about them. To which Bo replies that they are a brave group of allies. Adora strongly disagrees with Bo and explains that the Freedom Fighters' methods are no better than the Horde's. Bo understands Adora's argument, but states that she cannot escape the fact that the Freedom Fighters have freed many villages in a short space of time. So in other words, this group of Freedom Fighters have been more effective than the Rebel and their, let's capture them and, hope you learnt your lesson kind of thing with the Horde. So, arriving at the village of Angel, the rebels are greeted with little respect from the villagers. Many of the villagers accuse Adora and her friends of being too slow in their fight for freedom. Adora attempts to make a speech, but the leader of the Freedom Fighters, a guy called Star, I don't know why I called him Star, but I just thought, Star, tells Adora that the days of the Great Rebellion are numbered and that the Freedom Fighters will vanquish the Horde and win the war. Adora remarks that Star sounds more like Hordak than a leader for good, and that in war, no one can ever claim to be the winner. As Adora disapproves of his violent tactics, Star explains that the only way to send a real message to the Horde, destruction is the only way to truly gain freedom from the Horde. Like, as in, you're not going to say killing the Horde, but, destroying them and, doing that. Adora states that She-Ra, the most powerful woman in the universe, believes that fighting evil with evil cannot result in any good. Star questions that if She-Ra is such a powerful warrior, she could end the war in a heartbeat. As the heated debate grows, the Horde attacks the village. The freedom fighters use explosives and very Horde-like tactics to gain the upper hand in battle. Adora transforms into She-Ra. Hordak assumes that the freedom fighters and She-Ra are working together and hastily retreats. So Hordak's like, oh my god, She-Ra and the freedom fighters have teamed up. I'm out of here. Star tells She-Ra that they retreated because of the freedom fighters. She-Ra completely disagrees and tells Star that Hordak knows defeat, but he will come back again and again. Star cleverly responds that by stopping Hordak once and for all with their tactics, they will be doing everyone a favor. So in other words, if we kill Hordak, we're done with him. She-Ra is shocked, as she knows there is a truth to what he's saying. He is right. If we kill Hordak, we don't have to put up with this misery for years. But in her heart, she knows that that Star is wrong. She-Ra, Bo, and Cal decide to stay in the village. That evening, Star and with his allies and the villagers of Angel, all of whom have sided with the freedom fighters, plot to free the nearby village of Sky that has recently fallen to the Horde. So we're still in Angel, and they're thinking, right, how do we free the village of Sky? Star has a daughter, Amy. Amy that's named after Zadok. Zadok's sister is called Amy. So that was my little reference there. Star's daughter Amy. Star's daughter Amy wishes to go, and he happily agrees that she should witness the first step in the war against the Horde. She-Ra, overhearing this, breaks down the door and immediately condones Star's decision, angrily commanding that a child should never be encouraged to witness war. She-Ra tells Amy that war is a terrible thing and is certainly no place for a child. But after much arguing, Star is determined to let his daughter see their victory. That night, Star and his allies surround the village of Sky. So we're at night. Surround the village of Sky, now a Horde camp. They surround the village with a ring of bombs. She-Ra pleads with them that there will be no positive outcome. Star's daughter Amy is excited and determined to see the end of the Horde's reign, that she strays away from the group of freedom fighters unnoticed. Cal is shocked when he sees Amy by a secluded area outside the village. He pleads with her that it's too dangerous to be so close to the action, but Amy disagrees and wishes to see her father in battle. From a hillside, Star makes his speech to his followers, stating that for too long they have let the Horde rule this planet, and that victory will be this victory will be the first of many more to come. She-Ra walks away in disgust as Cal tells her of Amy's position. Just as Cal finishes explaining, she returns to see Star about to push the button. She-Ra screams at Star and races towards Amy. Star can only see She-Ra rushing towards the village and thinks, she's going to go and save some Horde soldiers or something. Or she's going to attempt to, She-Ra's got super speed, she's going to attempt to disarm all the explosives. Knowing that the Princess of Power can survive such an explosion, Star presses the button just as She-Ra picks up Amy. The explosions begin to engulf She-Ra and Amy, and I always had this vision of, when Filmation did that really white glow where it's just so intense that all, kind of like with the transformation. So She-Ra's holding this little girl and it has all these explosions going off. And due to the bright glow surrounding She-Ra, Amy looks up at She-Ra and asks if she's an angel. And She-Ra looks down and goes like, oh no, because she knows that this is hopeless. The explosions are so prominent and destroy the whole presence in the village. Like the villagers escape from their thing. I didn't really plot out that whole thing, but the villagers are like, hooray, we're free. The explosions are prominent, destroy the whole. However, much of the village of Sky is damaged. The freedom fighters celebrate as She-Ra walks through the smoke with the body in her arms. Star mocks She-Ra, believing her to be a fool for attempting to save the Horde warriors. He's like, oh, you want to save the Horde person, you fool. And then Star's face turns to terror as he sees his daughter lying in She-Ra's arms, lifeless. She-Ra simply remarks that I was trying to save your daughter. Star clutches his daughter's body in his arms and begins to break down as She-Ra looks upon another victim of the war with a tear in her eye. There you go.
Jesus, did she was dead? Wow, I mean, that was amazing. I mean, it shows, I mean, the freedom fighters, you can see that, yes, they want to do something that is good, but their means are just a little too aggressive, almost like vigilantes and then taking it too far. They want to do the right thing, but it's just too extreme. And am I to take it? I mean, Amy, was she supposed to have died?
Yeah, because my attitude was like, look what Filmation did with Brave Stars, The Price. They killed off a kid through drugs. You know, they had a child die. Brave Star had more characters die. So my attitude was, the longer She-Ra had gone on, if the show had gone back to its roots of war, I love the idea that it would have taken itself more seriously. Well, you know, as best it could. You still have to have, you know, bumbling fools and all that. But I just love the idea of tackling this subject of war and the consequences of it. And yeah, and obviously you're not going to see a child like charred or anything like that. But I just love the idea of Amy's like last images of She-Ra like covered in this glow. Are you an angel kind of thing?
It's powerful, James. That's a hell of a thing too. I mean, that takes some balls to even write something like that. I mean, could you imagine reading that? I mean, it'd be just amazing. I mean, hell, you talk about stories you'd like to put in comic form. I can only imagine what would people think once they see it. I don't think they'd hate it. I think it'd make them really just think about life, think about things. You know, that's a powerful message. It really is.
Yeah. I just love the idea of, like, you know, because we saw consequences in the She-Ra series, don't get me wrong. Like, I've always said The Price of Freedom is such a good episode because literally the villains win and the heroes are like, right, we're trapped. How are we going to get out of this situation? That's the story. The bad guys win in The Price of Freedom. That's like one of the most bold decisions to make is, you know, in She-Ra and He-Man, you're often seen to, you know, the villains can never win the day because, you know, it's kind of like the end of wrestling. Hogan must pose. That was always the thing. It's like at the end of the wrestling event, Hogan must pose. He had to overcome Sergeant Slaughter, the Iron Sheik, all these characters. So yeah, with She-Ra and He-Man, it was always like we're victorious. And I just thought, you know, with The Price of Freedom, they went that way of, oh my goodness, you know, yes, there's a happy ending, but midway through it's wow, the villains won. They burnt, they destroyed this village, and then they did the off. And I just thought in this story you could have, you know, you get these stakes, and maybe the reading that back, I may have established Amy sooner rather than really like 3/4 of the way through the story, because it's almost like you know what's going to happen to her, and she's like, I'm Amy, and I think I would have introduced her like almost her father's side right from the beginning, so she's very much established as a like a daddy's girl, and like, I want to see my father in action. And she's probably like 7 or 8 or something, so she's got an understanding of what's going on, but just, I want to see my father in action, and then runs to the to see her father, thinking that he's in the village, and then big explosions.
Well, hell, this could make it to your Masters of the Universe 85. You said you'll be introducing She-Ra at some point and stuff. Hell, this could be one hell of a story for people to read.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's so funny going back and looking at those. Like, we came up with that idea in, I think it was, like I came up with that back in like the late 90s when me and Zoda were coming up with all these different ideas. And I went through, again, after speaking to you the other week, I was going through a bunch of ideas. And I had one where King Randor and Marlena go to Etheria, and it sounds like a no-brainer because, of course, you'd like to think they would have done that at some point. But I thought, and the way they see Etheria is suddenly like, oh my goodness, we didn't know our daughter lived on a world that was this oppressed. And then you have a scene later in the episode where, you know, I don't know how, but you end up with King Randor somehow taking getting the pulling the rug out from Hordak or something, and standing over him and going, that's for taking our daughter or something like that. Not like killing him and be like, we killed Hordak, but just having that moment of, oh yeah, you robbed them of their child for 18, 19 years, whatever. And just have that moment where King Randor and Queen Marlena have stood over Hordak, and he's just like, you know, I'll get you next time, but they're like, yeah, we got you this time, you know, and just make sure you know that we hold you responsible for ruining our child's life, you know.
Well, I think you definitely floored everybody in the chat room with that story. Kind of put them to a halt. Maybe just shocked them. I haven't heard no complaints about it. I mean, Descendants of Grayskull, so that'd be a hell of an episode. But I guess we can end it with the one question that popped up in the chat room, and it's an interesting one because me and Tyler always love this, and we'll love to hear what you have to say. Spider Rat says, James, what would you do with the powers of Grayskull if you were to be hired to write it?
Oh, like the entire Powers of Grayskull thing, like Hero and all that.
Yeah, with like Hero, that power of Grayskull, yeah.
God, I'm not sure. I think initially, I have no idea. I mean, initially you'd have to tie it to, because you have to give something a jumping off point. So you'd have to start with, as the Powers of Grayskull mini comic did, you start off with He-Man and the Sorcerers look into the past, but then to establish that story, I've no idea. I tell you, see, I've never. It's not that again, we're all like allowed to like and dislike certain things. I've just never been the biggest fan of the Powers of Grayskull, just because not enough of it was established to get me passionate about it. But someone I know who loves it to pieces was Emiliano. Emiliano loves the Powers of Grayskull, and he's always sketching new designs and characters and stuff. But for me, it's never really. I appreciate what they were trying to do. I think had it been successful, then I'd be more passionate about it. But you say to me like, "Oh, what would you do with it?" It's like, I haven't really got a clue, to be honest. I wouldn't know where to go with it because obviously I think you have King Hiss as the baddie, right? I think that's the whole thing. Is prior to them being isolated or in prison, you have your snake men versus. I definitely take it back to. I'd almost, dare I say, go to like the Savage era of He-Man and have Hero take place in that kind of thing with small villages and beasts and make it more raw kind of thing, almost like Neanderthal era. Nothing. I don't want to see technology as much. Maybe technology.
I'd have it look like the Beastmaster, like the movie The Beastmaster, where it's a lot of like small kingdoms and farm villages and things like that.
I think what a nice thing you could have as a story thread would be the introduction of science. So you could have. Primarily, you've got obviously King Hiss has got the obviously the Powers of Grayskull. You had beasts with technological parts, but you could have the increase in more technology, because obviously what we see in He-Man, Wind Raiders and Collectors and all that stuff is so far removed from what the Powers of Grayskull is. So you could see the introduction of that technology kind of thing, and even bring back certain things. So maybe there's like an evil wizard and he creates something called the Diamond Ray of Disappearance, and you've already created a backstory to an object that occurs much later in the series. So you could do stuff like that. I think it's like when you write a flashback episode to what they did so brilliantly with Friends back in the day, where they wrote the first flashback episode. A lot of the brilliant comedy in that episode and storytelling is because what happens in a few years. Ross going, "Oh, I really like, Carol's met this girl at the gym, and I think they're really going to hit it off as friends." And it's like she ends up marrying that woman, And it's that whole thing of you. I think with the Powers of Grayskull, the strength would be in to tell or hint at what's to come, whilst also creating a story in itself.
Jesus Christ! You just bring up a Friends reference on? Oh, for fuck's sake! No, Friends? Who? What's Friends? I've never seen this fucking show. I was like, huh? You're talking. I was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Oh no, but love Friends.
See, we can all love or hate something. You're right. See, we can give each other shit about it. So the final question comes from Daniel Carhoonan. Any updates on the return of Faker? And if you can't say anything, don't say anything. I don't know if there's anything you can or cannot say.
I mean, like I said before, when I said last time, it's like the project we were supposed to kind of start working on, which would have incorporated the return of Faker, was supposed to start back in April, but the kibosh had to be put on it because of blooming the COVID-19. So unfortunately, it's one of those things. It's kind of in limbo at the moment until restrictions are lifted and people can travel around the world. That's the best way to put it. But I keep saying to people, it will happen. It's just going to take far longer than we first imagined, but it'll be worth it. It'll be probably 8 years after we created it or like started work on it, but you'll see it in the end.
We're like 80 years old. We finally get it out there. So we finally got
the Duke Nukem Forever of Masters of the Universe projects.
There you go. Yeah, the thing. Or what's the animated film, the Thief and the Cobbler by was it the guy who directed Roger Rabbit? I forget. No, I can't remember. John Williams? No, John something. Anyway, created this epic, and I think they started production in like the 1960s, and it never really got finished. So if you look at films that took the longest time to be produced, it's very much up. I think it's called The Thief and the Cobbler. But it's a fantastic film as well visually.
I'll have to Google that because I've never heard of that either. You brought up my first F-bomb. I didn't even realize until they said it in the chat room, but it was once you mentioned Friends and I lost. They said, Joe's first F-bomb of the night. So thanks, James. You brought that out. Didn't mean to. I thought it was going to be the whole show. Wouldn't do it. So we're still good. But James, it was a blast, man. We loved hearing about it, and we cannot wait to see what you're going to have with Masters of the Universe 85. Hopefully, like you said in the beginning of July. If not, I'm sure it'll pop up at some point. But you have to give us updates. We'll have to have you on back next month. You can read the other story that you're read tonight. Like I said, it's a way of just keep stretching out for more of these good stories. Just don't have them all one damn thing. I like having a little taste here and there. Not the whole thing, but So it was great having you. And well, everybody in the chat room, hope you enjoyed it. It was great having you on. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, share, ring the bell so you can always be notified when we go live. And James, before I say my last thing, any pages you want to promote that you can have people go to and click on through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anything to look at?
HeManSheeraShop.com, right, James?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the HeManSheeraShop.com. And yeah, I guess. Yeah, there you go. Buy a book. And my Instagram, which is, I guess, @SerialGeeks77. So that's about it, really. Like, I haven't been doing much in the way of social media because the world's been falling apart. But I've primarily been focusing on like this idea of Master Universe 85. Plus, I've been doing actual corporate storyboard work, so that's been fun. Yeah, so pays the bills. But,
all right, man. Well,
I did say, but thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, dude.
Always love having you on. So, all right, guys. Well, until next time, have a powerful day.
Tyler's not doing a movie. Tyler never does movies.
Tyler, you got
I'm my. All right. Well, I have one. I'm just like I'm always. Every time I have a guest, I always feel like it's kind of like I don't need to do the movie quote.
Yeah,
I just always. All right. Here's one. He tasks me, and I shall have him.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's strong. I bet I've seen it like a million times or something.
Oh, well, damn, James knows it. Nathan, do you know it? Because I don't, so we're going to be the two failures while James...
I don't know.
Yeah, James doesn't know. He just says it sounds like he's heard it a bunch of times.
Say it one more time, Tyler, please.
Okay. He tasks me, and I shall have him.
Damn. That really does sound familiar. That one, for fuck's sake. I give up. I'm going to throw it in the towel. What about you, James?
Do we know the actor is? Like, or is that too much of a giveaway kind of thing?
I mean, I could give it to you. Ricardo Montalban.
Oh, right. So, yeah, probably. I don't know enough of Montalban's work. Obviously, wasn't he in one of the James Bond movies or something?
Wasn't it in a Naked Gun movie?
He was in a Naked Gun movie, but I'm not quoting the Naked Gun.
What's he in?
Wait a second. Oh, Grimbot said Wrath of Khan? Grimbot said Wrath of Khan?
Yeah.
Grimbot really? Got it. Okay, there you go.
I didn't peg you, Tyler, as much of a Wrath of Khan fan.
It's more of a recent thing. During this whole COVID thing, I've just kind of like explored a little bit more, and Star Trek was actually kind of one of the things I'm like, I'm going to dabble a little bit into this here.